Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. It's the podcast where we have digital discussions, the worlds of music, TV, pop culture, film, everything really. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On Twitter, you know me as PD Beats. My guest this afternoon is a singer-songwriter. We are with Bif Naked. Bif, welcome to Popternative.
Hi, this is so cool.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Big fans. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Icebreaker question, whether you're, a musician, a actor, a writer, you are all storytellers. When did Bif Naked decide that she wanted to be a storyteller?
Well, I think that, I was a chatty kid. I was a really gregarious, clown around kind of kid. I was the class clown. I was in the school plays. And my parents stuck us in stuff like ballet and piano recitals. So I always kind of really loved the performing. I was in the performing arts. I knew I would either be in theater or something. Falling into, a punk band when I was in my first year of university was total accident. But the first time we played in Ottawa was in 1990, opening for the Mighty Boss Tones. Great. Great little band. Yeah, it was fun.
That's awesome. And you know what? It's one of those things where the people that have followed your music, there's like album from album, there's been some like experimenting sounds, you know what I mean, here and there. But it's safe to say that's kind of natural with musicians, right? Everyone always wants to try something new.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, I love it. We've done it. We've done a dance record before. We had a couple of side projects that were like full-on death metal. I love country music. Hank Threes. We're big fans of Hank the Third. It's just, I think anything goes. If you're a music fan and you like music, then you have an appreciation for every type of music in every language.
No, absolutely. So when people talk about your music as alternative, grunge, 90s rock, I mean, there's so many different things. What do you specifically categorize your music as? Like, what do you kind of think that it should be called? Or could it be called all those things? Or is there one specific that you like?
I think that for me, I've been really fortunate as an artist. On my first record, I had a rap song, a metal song, punk songs, an a cappella piano song. I mean, it was really a bit over the map. And back then in 1994, I couldn't get a record deal. Everyone said, you have to stop being a cherry picker and you got to pick something. You can't do that. And I thought, okay, screw everyone. I'll just start my own record company. And that's why we did it that way. But because of that, I was able to kind of do what I wanted as far as jumping around from genres. I think a good song can translate acoustically, pop, metal, and it's fun. I've always just said I'm a rock singer, but I think the truth is, I think that my ethos, my social justice boner, basically, that I've always had is really kind of DIY punk. And I think that it's more of an attitude than anything else. But I think ultimately the songs that, enabled me to do huge tours all over the world were pop songs.
That is very true.
Yeah.
Do you think that, so I mentioned it before, Big Shiny Tunes, I Love Myself Today, that's the tune. That's the rocker, that's like the headbanger, you know what I mean?
It's
but
wonderful.
One can make an argument that there is a little bit of like a pop aspect to that song too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, all pop really means is popular. Yeah. So I was very lucky. I was so lucky. It's difficult to get played on rock radio. And now even more so. There's not a lot of rock radio left. There's, I guess, streaming radio stations. But it's still hard. It's even harder for a chick in, active rock, if you can call it that. And so I've been very fortunate. I've always felt really lucky to be able to get included in those stations and on those playlists. So Thank
that
goodness.
that active rock thing you just said is very
Yeah.
interesting. We'll get back to that, but before I go, because you're talking about the DIY punk, it's like a two-part question. Part one is like, for you specifically, with the music you made and like the music that you toured over the years, what were kind of, do you think, the main influences for that music? And then talk a little bit about, I mean, you mentioned like you're all over the map in terms of what you like, but a lot of people that play music, like there's metal bands I know, they listen to country, but they play metal.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think that, I can answer both of those in the same ideology, which is, everything has influenced me. Everyone from literally Whitney Houston to DOA to the Nils to SNFU to Mariah Carey to even Madonna when I was a little kid growing up and listening to this beautiful Italian girl who wore a black bra, and to my mother's chagrin, really influenced us as far as just being young women, because it made us feel like, oh, hey, wait a minute, we really admired this really outspoken person, and she's kind of super beautiful, and embracing that and being provocative with it. And as far as, punk bands and stuff, a lot of the stage influences I had were all guys, until I was lucky enough to meet one of my best friends, who's Gail Greenwood from Belly and Boneyard before that. And then she played in L7. And of course, those bands and that genre of female, I call them female frontmen, which is what I call myself, a female frontman. But really, we're front people, we're vocalists, and that's a big job. And you have to have, a great attitude. You have to be resilient, because if you want to deal with being a front person, you got to deal with hecklers, stage divers, and if you're a female, you're gonna have to take your licks and let it all roll off your back and not get rattled by anything anyone may or may not shout. That's punk rock. You got to get in the mosh pit.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, but when you're on stage too, I'm sure, I mean, different people have different cope mechanisms, but I'm sure like when you're on stage too, do you like kind of zone out and you're just focused on the music where you play, and then the song's done and then you focus on the crowd? Take us through what's going into Bif Naked's head when you're on stage.
Well, it depends on the stimuli, of course. I always say it's like being a hockey player. You don't know what's happening down the ice. You got to be ready for anything. And that used to be when we were young. I mean, everyone used to come on the stage and kind of do their stage dive. And that was, what we encouraged, even though the bouncers didn't like it, but it's how it was. I lost my teeth from a stage diver kicking my teeth out in 96.
Whoa.
Yeah. And that was the first time, and I felt like I was baptized, we kept going. Like, I mean, that's all you can do. And I mean, some of the best shows, you end up with cuts and bruises. Maybe not today, because things are different. We're not allowed to, interact that much with the audience anymore. You can't punch people in the mosh pit. You can't, there's all sorts of different things. But I'm glad that I had that background, because it made me a better performer. And now I find that if I get lost in a song, like Spaceman is an example. Spaceman I can't play and get lost in, because I'll cry. And like, that is like just not good for my show. I don't want to be like, all emotional too much. But I will get lost in the song. And the audience, if they're singing all the words, that's something that is makes my heart grow and get bigger. And I have to stop the song a lot and talk to everybody. And it takes forever to do a show. I'm not going to lie to you. I can't stop talking to people. I'm so happy to see everybody.
No, it's definitely interesting. Something you brought up that I find very interesting too is, and I don't know, you can link this back to music, but right now, like horror movies, I don't know if you're a big horror movie fan.
When I was younger, I saw Poltergeist and Freddy Krueger and was very freaked out by horror films. And now I think that the genre has really taken a new artistry, a
Yes.
different level of artistry. I think it's very different.
It has, absolutely. And one of the things that I realized for people that are researching a lot of these movies, like Jordan Peele's Get Out and Us, is because the writers of the movies and the directors, Biff, they're putting their own past experiences and past fears into the movie. And that's something that musicians have been doing for years. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's an art form for sure. And it's cathartic, and you do put yourself into all of those pieces.
So is it safe to say that the best kind of works of art, whether it's a song or a movie, are the real works of art that are from the past experiences? Because some people are going to have different ways of telling a story, right? But the ones that really dig deep from their past, you know, I mean, you can listen to a song, you can tell sometimes too, right?
Oh, sure. And I think that, you know, over the course of history, I think that we've all taken our variety of traumas, big and small, in our lives, and we've created art about them and surrounding them, whether it's writing poetry or making a painting, you know, that's got poop on it or blood, or like, you know, that's representing pain or whatever. And I think the same is true for sure for music.
No, it's insane. And I just find that right now, in terms of content, it's such a good time for content because of, you know, social media and everything. So I find it interesting because, you know, we were talking about, you know, I Love Myself Today, and like the big effect that Bif Naked has had, you know, in the 90s and was everywhere and much music and all that. But look at now with social media, that much music stuff and those music videos, they live on forever.
They do. And, you know, I think you're right. I think this is a really, it's a time of great, like, I don't know, revival in a way, because the internet does enable different generations to get to know other music. And I think that's incredible. These are really neat times. Any of us can discover anything on the internet. You know, you can listen to, I don't know, devotional classical Indian music. You can listen to Sufi music. We can listen to death metal from Sweden. We can find anything and discover it and appreciate it in new and amazing ways.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. One of the best things I love about going to see a live show is the singing along the songs. There's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than being with friends and seeing your favorite acts live and singing along. That's why I think karaoke is one of my favorite little things to do. And no, but like it's true. Like that's probably one of the best things about going to shows.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is true. And if you go to, and there's a lot of shows that are really kind of geared toward that. For example, Dropkick Murphys, you know, I mean, come on. There's nothing like being at a show where everybody is just doing the Dropkick Murphys chant. I mean, you know, you can say that for a million bands. Lionel Richie did a tour 2 years ago that we saw. Of course, Queen Mariah Carey opened for him. And it was, you know, every song, you know, you can sit there and listen to Clutch, you know, all the way to the concert and like, you know, have your Mastodon, and then you hear Lionel Richie and you know every word to every song. It is amazing. And you sing it with everybody.
It's crazy. I remember when I went to go see like Green Day for the second time. Yeah. I just went with a bigger group of people. There was about like 20 of us. Yeah. And like we belted like every word. And that was like the best thing ever. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And I think that's the whole, I mean, and that's something that historically has bonded people. I mean, even in medieval times, you know, if we can sing as a group, as a community. And, you know, some of these songs, even protest songs, that's another example of sing-alongs that really just kind of bond us as human beings and empower us. And it inspires us, but it makes me feel
Are you familiar with the band Anti-Flag?
I am.
Yeah, so you said protest songs, the first one that came to mind, because they got the crowd going with a lot of those songs.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Bob Marley, another example. I mean, yeah, I think that we're very fortunate in this day and age to just have access to everything we want whenever we want it.
It's funny you also mentioned like hockey before, because my background's in hockey. I do interview a lot of hockey players on the show. Yes. But what I find interesting is like, there's nothing like going to a live event, whether it's a hockey game, like a sport or a concert, like just the energy in the crowd.
That's right.
Is amazing.
Absolutely.
Do you think we're in do you think that do you see like a steady kind of attendance record? Like, what do you kind of think about, like, do you think it's been stable? Are people going to more events? Are people going to less events? What do you kind of think about that?
You mean in general?
Yeah, in general.
I think that it's expensive for people. I think that, there's a couple levels. We just moved to Toronto from Vancouver this year, for example. And maybe the complaint is the same in Ottawa. Often the complaint, in Vancouver anyway, used to be that people just didn't go to shows. They wanted to, but, they just didn't go. And we were told the same thing is true here in Toronto. But I haven't found that. The population is bigger here. So there's going to be lots of shows. Like, for example, last year, the Scorpions played in the summer at the Budweiser stage with Megadeth. I mean, you got to kind of go to that. I mean, come on. Got to go see Klaus belt it out. You have to. You have to go see Dave Mustaine. You just have to go. So that's that tier level of show. It's kind of pricey, but it's really worth it if it's a nice summer night or whatever. There's regular shows that are always happening with current and up-and-coming bands at places like the Phoenix and the Danforth, same with, and they're always very busy and popular. But what I like is going to shows at like the Bovine, going to the $10 shows. I mean, the Black Halos are playing here next weekend. Stuff like that I think is really important. And I think there's a real resurgence in people going. Mavericks in Ottawa is a perfect example because they do a lot of really, really cool metal shows, metal and punk shows, and people might not know that, but often in music today, a lot of the real cool creativity is coming out of the metal scene. And I think more people should listen to metal, particularly Canadian metal, because there's some really amazing things, and hardcore bands. There's amazing hardcore bands out of Ottawa, out of Gatineau, out of Montreal right now. I mean, I don't know. This is a really creative.
So who are some bands of that genre that you can kind of recommend for my viewers to check out?
Everybody should honestly go to, like, for example, if you go to something like Heavy Montreal, it's not hard to get there for any of us. And there's so many different stages. There's different bands. There's booths. There's vendors. I think things like this are really important for us to all go to. Save your money. Go to these type of shows. Support local bands when you can, and support all ages shows. They're really hard to come by. Check the record store. Go to Vertigo Records, see what's new, what's coming out, what's going to happen. You just have to really stay on top of it because it's worth it.
Have you ever you mentioned like going to those smaller shows like at the Bovine. Do you ever have you ever had any moments where you like showed up to a show and like you got recognized? Like, did that ever happen?
So many times.
Yeah.
But it depends. Like, mostly, I'm pretty low key. I'll wear my jean jacket and my ball cap, and nobody really cares. A few times I've had altercations in the public with usually really drunk people who either don't like vegans or their girlfriend liked the song Lucky and then they broke up, and so then they're mad at me or whatever the case. But then they're just, some people can't fight. So
that's like the first that I didn't think about that at all. You wrote a song that ruined my relationship.
Oh yes, there's lots of that happens. And I think that's just part of anybody being in a band. I think that your band is not everyone's gonna like it, and people are gonna complain to you to your face, or whatever the case. I had a girl ram her grocery cart in the back of my ankles once, when I was trying to buy spinach or whatever I was doing. And it was the same thing. My boyfriend really liked your band and we broke up, so I'm going to ram my cart into your legs.
Oh, man.
You never know. But I mean, that could happen, if you're a school teacher or a bus driver too. So not just if you're in a band.
No, absolutely. Another question before we wrap up, I want to ask you when you talk about 90s, and 2000s Canadian rock, Bif Naked is often like with a lot of my friends, a lot of people I know. You mentioned Bif Naked, words like influential, iconic, legendary. For that, that comes up sometimes.
Very nice. It's so very nice.
I mean, that kind of, if that's not kind of motivation and respect in terms of kind of like whether people ever have, doubts of what they're doing, when people use words like that, that just must be so, like, you can't describe it.
I can't describe it. And I just feel, really lucky. I've always been the kind of person that just, I think we're all the same. I think everybody, by the time we're like 30, and onward, we've had adversity in our lives, even if we had great childhoods or like super privileged middle class and upbringings here in Canada. But, as life goes on, we start experiencing a lot of adversity, a lot of really hard things, and the older we get, the older our parents get,
Oh, yeah.
The older our pets get, people start getting sick or passing away. And I think that's something that for me has always connected me with everyone, my peers, the audience, my neighbors, the guy at the grocery store. I mean, I just think that we all experience the same things as human beings. And I don't know, maybe I talk more than other people. But as far as being influential, other people influence me equally as much.
No, that's a great way to look at it,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, Bif, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate it. This is so cool. Your show is awesome.
Thank you so much. And your music is awesome.
Thank you.
Where could people follow you on social media? What could they be looking out for? Plug away.
Well, I'm on Twitter every day. I've been on Twitter for about 10 years. And it's I love it. A lot of people think social media is super negative or they feel negative on social media. I don't know. I talk about, the birds and about bands I like and about, papayas and about the weather. I mean, literally. And I'm on Instagram too. I don't post as much as some of my friends do, and they always tease me because I don't post as much. But I like it.
What's the handle? Like, where can they follow you at?
Bif Naked Official on Instagram. On Twitter, it's Bif Naked. On Facebook, I think it's Bif Naked or Bif Naked Official. It'll come up with the blue thing. That's the one. And feel free to, shoot me a message or anything, and I'll say hi.
Perfect. Well, seriously, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And hopefully we can have you back again sometime.
I hope so. Please. Yes, I would love it.
No, absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. And until next time, this is Bif Naked and PD Beats signing off.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.